Hi everyone, Jen here for Graphic 45 with you today, and I am going to show you my recent project, which is the Graphic 45 Flower Market, is the collection that I'll be using. And this is going to be a year of memories in the form of a memory album filled with folios for each one of the months. Right now I just want to show you what I used, as well as the construction of the album and one of my folios. And then I'm going to walk through how I made each one of those 2-month sections that's going to go in here. So for each signature that goes into the book, it's going to be 2 months. Very similar to the Tag and Pocket album that is available, which you could use that as well and do it similar. My difference with mine is my months each have 4 pages rather than 3 with a pocket in the middle. So what I have used, I've used all of the 12 by 12 except for one. I've used one sheet of each of the 12 by 12 and then part of another sheet. I also used the 8 by 8, same thing, and I've only got bits and pieces of one sheet of each left. So this is a very extensive project. I have used completely all but a couple scraps of the patterns and solids. And then from my stash, I used, I also used the ephemera and journaling cards that you can get with this collection. If you buy the whole package, if you're wanting to make one of these, the whole package is your best value because you get everything that I'm going to use, except for the stuff from my stash, which I've used for my tags to mat them. I've used a heavy 110-pound ivory cardstock from my stash. And for my matting on my covers and here, I've used a regular weight ivory canvas cardstock from my stash. My base was done with a craft cardstock, as well as my folios, my pages, and my album cover. Now, my album cover I have done using the lay flat method that was done by Tamra Merrill of Country Craft Creations, and there's going to be a link below for that for you. I've already put mine together, and then I've done L hinges in here, and there's lots of tutorials out there for L hinges. There are 6 of them in here. Each of them are 1 inch, and I have scored them at 3/8 and left the rest for the book or the signatures to attach to. So you have 3/8 inch spaces in between each of these. And then I will decorate both of these sides as well as the cover, the back, and the spine. Now the album itself, this is going to be a pretty chunky album when we're done. This is a 5.5 by 7.5. And then we have a 3-inch by 7.5 inch spine. So, and it's heavyweight chipboard, craft cardstock, and like I said, I'll put that link to the lay flat method. I also have a photo slide that will follow this conversation so that you see all the pieces that are required, how to cut them out of your sheets, and all the pieces for each one of the folios. I will show you that on the January, I had one here for you. So January I had out. Let me find it. So I have a picture slide that will be on this video going forward that will show you how to cut these pieces out, and then a cut guide for all the other pieces, so the craft and the other pieces. And as you can see, each one of the months has, in the 12 by 12 and the 8 by 8, has all of this in it. And I've utilized parts of both. I did use everything you see here. I have not cut these stamps out, but they will be added. However, I've used everything else that you see here. So you're going to want to cut out your borders, cut your butterfly. All of my butterflies were cut as you see here. And they are fussy cut around the bottom of the butterfly. And then this will get all evened out when we add it to the book. And you will need several sheets of craft cardstock, a few sheets of the ivory regular cardstock, or whatever color you choose to use. And then I've used some different colors of regular cardstock from my stash to make little calendar books. And I'll show you what I mean by that. Let me just get this out of the way. So this is my first completed signature that will slide into the book. This is January, February. It's fairly simple looking, I wanted to keep it nice and clean and simple. And you will open this. You get a flap here, place for picture here, place for picture here, place for journaling here. Now, some of mine I have turned this way and some are upright. And the reason for that is I really wanted to utilize the journaling side of these 3x4 cards, and there aren't 12 of them. So I chose to do some of them sideways, and a couple of them I actually cut from the larger journaling cards. So here's an example of one of the tags that was cut. This is cut out, and then I cut a piece of the heavy ivory at 2 3/8 by 4 1/2, and then I placed my tag down on there, glued it down, and then just sheared off those corners. And then the little calendar, this was blue from my cardstock, or from my stash, just regular cardstock. And this one, if I could hold on to it, this is going to be 5 1/4, and then by 7, scored at 3 1/2. And I've cut, as you can see here from the example, I wanted this to be a little bit cleaner and simpler, and it needed to fit in here really well. So I cut off the calendar right at the bottom of this scallop all the way around. So as you can see, my calendar doesn't have that scallop. If you want to make it a little bigger and use scallop scissors or something to do that, feel free. I just did not like the way it looked for me straight, and I didn't really want to fussy cut all of that, to be honest. So, but you can. If you have more patience than I do and want to fussy cut it, that is up to you. All right, so let me stuff this back in here. So that is the cover in page 1 and 2 of January. And then on the flip side, we have this page for January, and you can slide a picture in here because this is made to have a small little pocket down here. And this is the border strip from the paper. Okay, so then that flips and we start with February. Same thing. This one is this way. Place for a picture, place for a picture. You have your tag. And this, for some reason, is not on paper. I need to fix that. I just realized I didn't put the calendar on the paper on that one. I will get that done. So that is how I did that. And then that one little strip there. And then this is the back side. So this is the first signature that will go, and it will slide into the book on here, just like so. These are mitered. And this will slide right over that. And that will be our first station. And in the middle, there will still be this fun pocket that you can stick stuff in. Fun. Okay, so I am going to show a couple slides in between, and then I will show you how I put together the signatures. Okay, so per the cut guide, you will have cut from your base color. Mine is Craft. You may be using white, black, whatever you're choosing to use. Let me just refer to my notes really quick here. So the bases like this are 7 by 12, and you will have cut 12 of these, and you need 2 for each signature. So 2 7 by 12s, 1 5 by 8. Mine are cut at 4 7/8. You can do that, but after putting it together, the first few, I kind of like the idea of having it be 5 because I had already cut the papers. But if you want to just follow along with how I did mine, it works perfectly fine. I did 4 7/8 by 8. Okay, and then you will have your hinge, which is 1 inch by 7 inches, scored at 1/2 inch down the middle. So this is what you will need for the base of each. And how you want to get started with this, start by you grab one of your 7 by 12s and put it on your scoreboard. Make sure I'm in the frame there. And we're going to score this at 5. And we're going to score it again at 10. That's going to leave you 2 inches at the end for a pocket. Okay. So you're going to fold your pocket in and just make sure it all lines up. Some papers out there on the market, as far as cardstock, don't always line up perfectly, and I want mine to be perfectly straight. So I'm going to flip it again around on my scoreboard this way, upside down. And a trick that I learned is to just line this up here and then push your score line down, do your burnishing. And then you get a nice, crisp, clean look, okay? And also, I wanted to give you a tip. So, and I forgot to mention this earlier. One of the things that I do if I'm doing something with a calendar collection or a piece that has a lot of fussy cuts or a piece that does a lot of repetition, like this, every month is the same. I made myself some folders. I just took some older cardstock, folded it up about 4 inches and then stapled it. And then I cut out all my pieces as I showed in the cut guide picture. And I put them in here by month. That way I don't lose any of my pieces. I can go back and grab them. And then once I had everything together and cut for the decorating, I just put them all together in bundles, as you can see off here to the side. So that's just a little designer tip for you. So let's dive into how to put this together. I'm going to put my base aside, and we're going to grab that 4 7/8 by 8 piece. Put that on your scoreboard, and we want to score it 1/2 inch on both ends. So 1/2 inch this way, and then score it at that 7.5 on this side. And that will give you, this is going to be our middle pocket, okay? Going to move this over. And I am going to grab this. Now, the way I like to decorate mine, the first one. Now, the second part of the signature, right now I am doing September, October is what I'm at, that I'm showing you. And what I want to do is, I want to go ahead and do this whole thing. But when we get to October, we will have to attach before we put that on. And I probably will repeat myself because I don't want you to mess up your book. I've had to take a couple of these apart before I realized that. So I'm going to turn it this way. So my pocket is here. This is my cover. This is my back. This is not going to be the actual back though, because the pocket will go on this one. Okay. So let's get started. I'm going to grab all my September pieces here. This is all September and these are all October. So I'm going to move my October out of the way, grab my September, and I will separate everything here. So this is an outside piece. This is an inside piece. This is my little calendar piece. This goes on the inside. This goes here. This is my inside, inside, inside. And this is actually the back cover here. Switch this out. This is the inside. And this is our back cover piece. And then we will have the blue bottom of that piece. Okay. So how we get started here first is I need to make sure that I cut this correctly. I noticed when I was putting these together that somehow I managed to cut a few of these too short and a few too long. And we want this to end up being the same width as the paper we have on the cover. And so we need to make sure that they're 4.5 inches wide. And I'm going to cut it to where I've already done the fussy cutting of the butterfly. But I am going to cut this right at the edge of that scallop. I don't want to cut the scallop off, but I also don't want it showing as much. And then I notice this is not completely straight. So I'm going to straighten this end out a little bit. And then I'm going to go all the way back and go to 4.5 because we want these to be 4.5, these butterfly strips. Make sure you don't cut off your butterfly's wing. Okay, so that's what you'll have there. Next, you will have 4 pieces for the cover, plus your butterfly strip and your month. Now, I used dies I will show you. I have it in a picture, but I can show you also that I used a scallop die in my set that was round with the scalloped edge. It was just a die set from my stash. If you don't have that, there is a size in the Tim Holtz Finlet circles that fits that you can use as well. Or you can use a circle punch or a scallop punch. Any of those will work. Or you can cut the circles out on your own. Either way. So, for the cover, I have an ivory piece from Matte. This is going to measure 4 3/4 by 6 3/4. Then I've chosen a color that coordinated with the month from the Patterns on Solids for each one of these. And you can do them in any order that you like. I did show in a picture the colors that I chose for each month. So if you're following exactly along with me, you can see that. These are going to be 4 1/2 by 6 1/2. And then on top of that, we will have another piece of the ivory that is 4 by 4 1/2. And then this is cut from the 8 by 8. And it measures 3 3/4 by 4 3/8. Okay. So first we're going to put all of that together, and I'm just going to glue all this down. Okay, so now I have all that glued down. You can see how I did that. We have our bordered, our matte, and then the blue sheet, this matte, this sheet, that's little scallop punch September, and then our butterfly strip. And then we will move to the inside, okay? So for the inside, what we're going to need, now this piece is cut from the 8 by 8 February sheet. As you can see, this is what's left on the back of it. And this is going to measure 4 7/8 by 6 7/8. And I'm going to go ahead and glue that down on camera since there's a few steps here. The cover is just basic glue it down kind of thing. And I am using art glitter glue, just so you know. It is my go-to. I love it. And I want to put this down. I probably should have waited to glue this with you until I had my other piece ready. But we want to make sure it lines up and don't adhere the left side of it just yet. If I can get this to, you know what, I'm just going to lay this to the side. Let's go ahead and grab our little piece. So the little piece of craft that you have that measures 4 3/4 by 3 1/4 is going to go this way. We want to go ahead and grab a scoreboard because this is our little flap. And I'm just going to score that at 1/2 inch down the side, going with the 4 3/4 this way. Because that little flap needs to sneak underneath that sheet of paper. So just make sure that you're looking when you're putting these down, whether you have the horizontal or vertical orientation, if you're doing it this way. You may choose to just do some of yours with the fronts of the cards. Like this one here, this was actually cut from the top of one of the larger journaling cards from the package. So this is just going to line up at that bottom corner, just as if it were an extension of the paper. Make sure that it opens and closes nicely. And then burnish that down. And then we can lay our paper on top of it. Go ahead and add a little more glue to this because I took it off there and my glue had a moment to dry. Okay. You just want to line that up. Make sure it does not go over any of your score lines. This one in the middle. Especially because you need your book to be able to turn. And if that goes over the score line, I always pull mine forward because especially with craft, if you're using craft cardstock, it's kind of hard to see. And sometimes you can overlap that without even realizing it. And I don't I don't want to do that. So for this side, I have chosen, this is from the Patterns and Solids, and I have cut these all at 3 1/4 by 6 7/8 because this pocket's going to cover it, so you don't have to use as much paper. And one of the things I loved about this collection is that the Patterns and Solids in this one, the patterned papers are so subtle that you can literally choose either solid or the subtle pattern and get the same result. It's not too busy. It's very pretty. And that is what I'm doing here, is using that patterned side. Oof, push that up a little. And then you just want to grab your glue and go along the edge of both sides of the pocket. Very little glue. It does not take much. This is just going to become a little tuck pocket. You just want to make sure you burnish that out good. And kind of push your paper up to that when you're burnishing this, so this doesn't buckle. It'll still buckle a little. It's just what paper does. Once there's something in there, it stops. So there is that, and then we are going to add, see, I could do the pattern or I could do the purple, but I'm just going to do the purple on this one. So I'm just going to add this little strip, and I can tell you this is 1 7/8 by 6 7/8. And you will cut one of these for each folio. Every measurement that I'm showing you, you will cut and coordinate with your papers for each one of your months. When it comes to the Patterns and Solids, you want to just try to coordinate as well as you can. What I kind of did was whatever was in the paper the most, like this one has the purples and the pinks and the blues, so I went with the purple and the blue. And I also went with the purple and the blue for my front and back of this, for my mats. So for this, we're going to go back over here. You're going to cut a piece for the horizontal ones like this. Horizontal, vertical, yeah. 4 1/8 by 3 1/8 for the inside and outside pieces. And you want 2 of these. I've chosen to do a pattern on the inside because I have the nice little journaling card that's going to go on the front for writing. So I'm going to put this here. You could also add magnets to this if you wanted it to stick to this. I chose not to do that. I didn't want the extra bulk. So I'm going to go ahead and burnish this down a little better. And they do close fairly well. Once you get everything together, they will close up just nice. Okay, and I have the purple solid I'm going to use, same size, for my front. Line that up. And like I said, I'm going to be going back and adding some stamping and some fun stuff with the chipboards once everything is in my book. And I will have a pictorial view of that in slides as well. This is just my journaling card that I've cut down to fit to 3 by 4. This one was cut from a larger journaling card so that I had the lines. I really wanted the look of journaling for the front portion and a picture on the back. And then your fun little strip that has the saying on it from each one of the months has this. Goes here. And I will tell you, when I decided on the pieces for the strip over here, I was very careful to make sure that I didn't use the same color as the background of this piece, because it would just disappear on the page if I did that. So I did a contrasting color. So let's set that aside, and I'll show you this again. Again, this is a heavyweight ivory cardstock that I had in my stash. 2 1/8 by 4.5. Sorry, 2 3/8 by 4.5. I apologize for that. And then of course the tag cut from the 12 by 12. And these I cut out with my rotary cutter. You can fussy cut them as well. I just wanted that nice crisp line. And if you have the kind of cutter that slides and you push it down before the blade actually touches anything like I have, it works wonderfully for cutting out these kind of pages that have all the different pieces. Okay, so now I have that. I'm just going to grab my scissors. I'm just going to kind of line up, oops, coming up there. I'm going to kind of eyeball the angle of the top of this and look at the top of my scissors and try to angle it exactly the same. Once I see that my scissor is in line with that, I can cut it pretty darn close, if not exact. And that will slide right in that pocket. And then we have our little blue piece of paper. Again, this is 5 1/4 by 7, and we're going to score it on the 7 at 3.5. And we're going to fold that as neat as possible. This is one of the elements that I will probably be using the stamps on the inside. This little calendar element. Make sure it fits. And I'm going to glue it to this. And this one got a little nick in it from my cutter that will not show once the glue adheres to the paper. So don't ever throw away your paper if something like this happens to you, because once you put it down on a mat, I will show you when I'm done, you will never know that it was ever like that. As long as you glue it down, burnish it well, you can't even tell that this was ever nicked. You just really push that glue down in that spot. And then the calendar just slips right inside of here. And that's how that goes. So this is our first in the signature. So this is our September, October. So what we need to do now is add the pocket that we did with the 8 inches with the 1/2 inch on each side. You want to fold over your 1/2 inches, burnish them nicely. And again, you can make these the full 5 inches if you like. Mine are 4 7/8. And as you can see, I made it so that mine have a little bit of space at the top. So when I put this on, I'm going to put it to where there's a little bit of space at the back and a little bit of space in the front. So when you put something in here, it's easier to pull in and out. And that was why my original plan to make them 5 seemed a little bulky. But you can do it that way as well. So I'm just going to add glue to one side. And I'm going to add that pocket on there. And line it up. Just tap it on your table. Line it up nicely. And then I'm able to go in and burnish that first one. I won't be able to do that with the second one, but at least I can do the first one. And then we're just going to go in and glue that other 1/2 inch flap. Super fun. And I will actually, this is a very usable project. I will be definitely, a lot of my projects I end up giving away as gifts or sending to companies for their samples. This one I will probably use for myself. It's absolutely, this collection is just beautiful. So now we have our pocket, as you can see. So next we're going to go ahead and we're going to decorate that pocket. And what I've done here is the 12 by 12 that was left over was part of this piece here. And I just used the flip side. So it's the larger version of what's here. And this is going to be our back pocket. And it does not matter that it's not long enough because we're going to be putting this piece on. So when I did mine, I cut these for 5" and then ended up cutting my pockets to 4 7/8. So this piece technically needs to be at 4 3/4 by that 6 7/8. I do believe. Let me double check. It might be 6 3/4. Yeah, 6 and... Oh, it's not going to matter because we cut it out. Never mind. I apologize. So you need it to be 4 3/4 if you're doing these at 4 7/8, though. So just put this, because it will be shorter, even it out as far as your spacing around the sides and the top. And don't worry about the bottom being bigger gapped, because that's where our little tuck pocket's going to go. And I'm going to flip this way so that I can burnish this a little better. Okay. So the little tuck pocket also needs to be 4 3/4 for this. And I'm just using a strip from the bottom left over to make these tuck pockets. And that will go right there. So just around the side, across the bottom, and up the side. And then just put that down, leaving that little bit of space, just like we have at the top of the craft showing, or whatever color you've chosen for your background, your base. And that becomes our little tuck pocket. And then as far as this will have to be fussy cut, again, from the 12 by 12. You just want to kind of put it on here, and I did this with all of them, and it kind of told me that just this bottom, so you have the 2 scallops, if you go right across that first scallop there, and then all the way across the bottom, you get just the right amount of glue so that you don't go up over. I went a little bit too far with mine, I think. And then we're just going to go place this down on here. Burnish it down onto that strip, and you have that fun pocket. Easy peasy. So here is where we are going to do things a little bit differently, because we're going to add a second station. But first I am going to show you. You will need your little strip that is 1 inch by 7 inches. Scored. I just want to miter all these corners. So it's going to look like you have a 2-ended arrow here when we're done, like so. Okay. Go ahead and fold that. Burnish it as well as you can. And then we want to add glue. So you see how this is sitting? It's like an L. We're going to add glue to the top of the inside of that. So just along here. Okay. And then you want to go, you're on your pocket side here. You're going to want to slip this up underneath of here, like so. And then open it up so that it's not going over. You don't want this to meet or go over. You want a little bit of space before the score line. And then we're just going to burnish that all down. I'm going to fold this in, and I am going to clip this while I decorate the next station. So the next one, again, is the next, excuse me, 12 by 7, scored at that 5 and that 10. And this is going to be my October. For me, this is October. And what we don't want to decorate on this one yet, if you're decorating before you want to put it on that, I will suggest that because it's much easier. Do not decorate your cover yet. Just your inside and then you can do your back at the end. But you don't want to decorate your cover because your cover is going to go over that flap right there. So skip the cover, and we'll do the inside of October. So this is part of my cover. This is part of my cover. This is the back. Cover, back, cover. I'm just separating my pieces out over here. This is our inside. This is part of the inside. And this, and this, and this. And this is cover. Okay. So once you have all your pieces, we're going to go ahead and do this first. So I have another one that goes this way, which means that my flap piece measures 4 3/4 by 3 1/4. And I'm going to put that in here, score it at 1/2 inch. And I'm going to fold that over and burnish. And then I'm going to add glue just to the flap. And I'm going to place that at the bottom corner. Doing my best to line that up as neat as possible. Make sure that it opens and closes. Can be tricky sometimes. I'm going to burnish it again since it's on here, and you can see how nicely that one's opening and closing. And then I will grab my piece cut from the 8x8. Okay, and then we can go ahead and decorate this portion. And like I said, all of these cuts are the same, with the exception of whether you have a horizontal or a vertical. And I will have the cuts on there. But you will have 6 horizontal and 6 vertical if you do it exactly like mine. And you can change it up any way you like. You can make these bigger. You could make it big enough to hold the whole 4x6 journaling card if you prefer. All right, moving along. We're going to put our purple down. Let's see here. Do I want to do the... I think I have that backwards. Yeah, this goes this way. So we do this and the pink. I think I'll stick to the solid purple on this one. Like I said, this is such a subtle pattern. It's very, very, very versatile. I love how all of Graphic 45's collections just coordinate so beautifully. And I'm still able to find papers in my stash when needed that will coordinate as well. And that's always nice because they do use colors that are easy to color match. Okay, so get that down. Do our pocket. Again, we're just going to put glue on both sides. And get it all the way to the top there. That won't stick very well if I don't. Okay, there's that. And our pink, 1 7/8 by 6 7/8 again. And this one says Harmony. Put that on. I will tell you, in all, if you calculate all of the pieces that are cut for each one of these folios, that includes the base, the flap, and all of the fussy cuts and such, I counted for all 12, not including the cover, 293 pieces of paper. It's a lot, but it's worth it because it becomes a gorgeous project when it's done. And who doesn't love a little challenge, right? I'm going to go ahead and adhere my tag to its mat. Show you that one more time. Trim the corners. Again, I'm just going to eyeball it. And when my scissors, look at there, like they're at the exact angle or pretty close, I can cut it. And that one did really well. Okay, and that again slides in that pocket. Close this up and put our purple solid. And then my journaling card. And I can show you that that's this one that I chose. I tried to choose the ones that went with the flowers. It doesn't always work out that way, but all of them coordinate beautifully, as do all Graphic 45 collections. They do a real beautiful job at making sure everything goes really well together. So even if you don't have one that's exact flowers, they're all flowers, right? They're all pretty, so it works. And there's that. And then all I have to do is add my calendar to this one. And we will do that really quick. Again, this is my 7 by 5 1/4. And I'm going to score it on the 7 at 3 1/2. Fold it over. And I'm using purple for the October. And get my calendar, make sure it's going to fit. You just never know if you cut something down enough or too much. And it's easy to adjust before you glue. Once you put glue on it, it's not always easy to make cutting fixes. And like I said, all this colored cardstock that you see is all just regular cardstock that I had in my stash. Most of it I get from the local craft store in packages, so it's not uber fancy. You can use any kind of cardstock for this portion. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put that in there. That's my October. And then we're going to go ahead and do the back side. So this one is a full. So this is going to be where we put the ones on the first part of each signature. So as I said, August, we had to cut this piece down a little because the pocket was 4 7/8. This is actually 5. So this piece itself is 4 7/8 by that 6 3/4, or excuse me, 6 1/2. It's 6 1/2 because that's what was cut out. You're going to cover the bottom, so it doesn't really matter what the length is. I'm just going to do this one, and then I will show you how to finish the signature. And then you can make one of these fun albums, and you can do this with any collection that you have and any calendar collection. There are many beautiful Graphic 45 calendar collections out there. And a lot of us Graphic 45 lovers have them still in our stash. And you could do this with any of those. Okay, clear that all down. Grab my little purple strip over here. Make sure it's the right size before I put glue on it, and it is. Again, I'm going to glue down one side, down the bottom, and up the other side. Okay, so now I have that little strip on there and my little flap, and we have our cover that is blank, our inside. So I'm going to go ahead and unclip from the flap here. So we have that little flap that we glued in. You're going to lay this down and add your glue to this side of the flap. And I like this system for hinging. I've made an album similar to this with this type of hinge system in the past, and it just holds up for a really long time. It seems like a lot more work because you are adding different things, but in the end, you will be glad that you did because, like I said, it lasts a lot longer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stand my book up. I'm going to stand my October signature. So I have my my September and my October, and I'm going to push those flaps together. And then I'm going to clip it again and allow that glue to get a chance to dry. I'm just going to grab clips. We really want that just to glue down. And if you see any excess glue, just kind of wipe it away with your damp towel. Damp towel is always a good thing to have handy. And I just really want that to glue down. So I'm going to let that sit just for a minute. And of course, we will be adding, just like we did the other. Once this is dry, as you can see, well, you can't see, but we will have our cover that we will add just exactly the same way as that. So that is how that goes. I will show you now while this is drying. We'll go ahead and put the January, February in the book so I can show you how to adhere it on the hinge on the inside of the book. And I'm only going to put that one in because I don't want it too bulky when I'm trying to decorate. So here is our book. Let me move this out of my frame. And you have your first hinge here. I'm going to take my first signature, which is January, February. And again, we have that pocket. We're going to do this the exact same way that we just did putting the 2 months together. So what you're going to want to do is you're just going to add score tape or glue. I suggest glue. You can do both. But score tape over time is not always going to stick. So I prefer to use glue for pretty much everything. And art glitter glue or barely art glue are the best. So you're going to put glue on one side. I like to do the inside, I think. Wait, let me look here. First, because you will have glue on both sides.